Just want to thank everyone for joining us on Facebook and here on Zoom as well. I want to thank our guest, Mr. Marc Desgraves, for coming to speak to us on his journey from accountant to entrepreneur. You can connect with us. This is a free hype event. You can connect with us on Instagram at free hype, on Twitter at free hype _, and on Facebook at free hype as well. A little bit about myself, just a little background for those who may not know. My name is Sean Freeman, here, based here in Dayton, Ohio, from Trotwood, Ohio, based in Trotwood. Graduated from Alabama State University. You can follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, or email me at sean@freehype.net and contact me on any of these platforms. So here we have Mr. Marc, and then Marc, if you would just want to maybe kind of give a brief overview, and then we'll get into the weeds of how you went from, accountant to entrepreneur.
Absolutely. I'll keep it brief. Marc Desgraves, originally from Dallas, Texas. And my late best friend, Ramon Harper, and I attended Alabama State together and were part of a co-founding of a non-for-profit with 10 other gentlemen from the Alabama area, different parts of Alabama. And we co-founded a nonprofit called Turning Dreams into Realities. We're a scholarship mentorship program. We try to have a lifelong relationship with the gentlemen that become a part of our program, to scholarship them, mentor them, and really just be a support vehicle and a life coach in some aspects. And we started that with the idea of really just trying to not have young men repeat some of the same mistakes we made, and really be positioned for success in life, both as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as a father, as a contributor in corporate America, whatever the vehicle is, and be there to support and uplift and encourage and motivate. And we do a lot of different things. And so Alabama State was a huge part of my foundation. And my team and my guys that I went to college with and co-founded this nonprofit with are a huge part of my fabric. And so Dallas is home, but home really is anywhere where I'm with my guys. I mean, we could all be at anyone's hometown or home, parents' homes, wherever we're at, we're always together. We're always family. We're always supporting each other. And so that's a huge part of who I am and what makes me up, and will be a huge contributor to some of the information I share today. I'm a CPA by training, so I received my CPA license in 2002. I've been practicing in different capacities, both in corporate America, tax preparation, business startups, merger and acquisition work, and just ultimately leveraging the experience as well through different vehicles that support youth. So Turning Dreams to Realities is a vehicle for that, but I've also served on the board for a charter school in Dallas, Fort Worth called Legacy Preparatory Academy. I serve as treasurer. So I'm utilizing the experience and the knowledge in a lot of different facets. And that's really what drives and motivates me more than anything else, is really making a difference. And as I talk more about Botanic and where I'm at now in my journey, it's about making a difference. And if it doesn't involve that, I usually don't put my time and energy into it, bottom line. And so I'm encouraged by gentlemen like Sean Freeman who have decided to join our program, and they're just part of our family now. I mean, and Sean knows this, we look to invite others into that circle. Our mentorship reaches men and women from the standpoint of our dream seminars and some of our information that we share through different verticals. But by and large, as part of the mentorship program, it's men only. And that's by design, mainly because We know that a lot of leadership in our country, which we're seeing now, a lack thereof, and a lot of leadership in the youth that come behind us, a lot of leadership in our families really starts with men. And at the end of the day, we want to position men that are part of our circle to be set up for success. So at the end of the day, originally from Dallas, I'm currently in Denver, Colorado, as I mentioned, for some that may have saw that, some of our earlier talks before we got started. My journey brought me to Colorado last year officially, but I've had different dealings and opportunities I've worked on and ventures I've worked on here going back to 2009. So I'm not too foreign to Denver and the Colorado area. So if anyone is in this area and would love to connect directly, would love to extend that invitation as well. But a little bit about my background career-wise, I finished from Alabama State in '98 with a degree in accounting. And the primary reason for that was a gentleman that was a mentor through a program called Inroads, gave me some very valuable advice. And he says, Mark, I know you're struggling with what major to pick. You selected marketing when you entered as a freshman. But at the end of the day, if you have any desires to be in business for some period of time, you should really look at an accounting or finance degree, which could give you a baseline and a foundation for business. Every single business venture has to have some sort of structure behind it that needs to have a leadership person in place to understand the numbers. And I don't care if that's for-profit, not-for-profit, if it's a church, I don't care what it is. Someone has got to understand the numbers, articulate the numbers, be able to make decisions off of that. And so when I heard that piece of knowledge, I thought, you know, I'm varied in my thoughts around where I want to take my journey from a career standpoint. But if I always had a foundation in numbers, I could probably get by and understand most things. So that's really what drove the change from marketing to accounting. And then from there it grew. But finished in '98, I started my career in oil and gas, which was my sponsoring company as part of that Inroads program. I did oil and gas for about 5 years, doing a lot of what they call mark-to-market accounting, centered around the oil and gas industry does a lot of paper transactions to hedge their interest in the physical transactions. So when they dig coal out of the ground, or they move electricity across a line, or they move gas across a pipeline, they usually have a lot of paper transactions that put them in the best positions to deal with market fluctuations in pricing for commodities. So I did a lot of the accounting associated with that. I kind of went the backwards route for public accounting. I know, Tina, you mentioned you did some public accounting. I didn't do it right out of college, but I did do it after my oil and gas run, and I worked at Ernst & Young for a little while, almost 3 years. And there I saw airlines, retail, and those were the two primary industries I saw working in public accounting. And there I left and went to publishing, and that was right around the time of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. So in my lifetime, there's been 3 major events that have had a huge impact on the economy. One was the corporate scandals that led to the Sarbanes-Oxley Act in the late 90s, early 2000s. We had the 10 to 12 years ago, we had the housing debacle associated with credit default swaps and insurance that was put on mortgage loans, which led to a recession, and most recently the COVID outbreak, which led to another recession. So as you can see, there's a trend here where, you know, you guys in your career and your journey have to be prepared for any and everything that may impact the economy. And a lot of that preparation comes in one of my messages today, which is to diversify yourself. Always be ready to make change in equipping yourself and being ready to take on new challenges. Don't be afraid to explore and build your knowledge and experience in your network, because you never know when you're going to need to tap it and tap into it and leverage it. And so in just my short career, I've given you 3 times in our country's history that have had major impacts on 401k values, on retirement readiness and career readiness, and the shifts that come with those things. And so when I went into publishing, I actually developed a lot of relationships, and that's where the real work around my civic side of my fabric had taken shape, because it was around 2007, 2008 that I started getting into a lot of things and that interest me from a civic standpoint. I started volunteering more. I did Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and eventually got connected with the school board that I mentioned, and co-founded Turning Dreams into Realities. And it became very evident that my career from outside of the corporate office was really needing to be energy and contributions dedicated to helping youth. And so when I started realizing that, I said, man, there's something here. And so part of that message of diversifying yourself is part of that story as well, in that, don't be afraid to volunteer and expand your network into areas that involve things that do and have contributions other than yourself. Thinking, what are my selfless acts? What are the things that are going to help someone else? Because when you do that, not only do you have value you're contributing, but you're also expanding your reach and your network. And so a part of your journey may come back and be directly impacted by some of the things you do for free, and some of the things you do because you enjoy doing it and you enjoy helping others, and you enjoy the selfless acts that come with that, and the heart that comes with that. And so, do those types of things over your career from now until the time you die, because at the end of the day, it's your dash that counts. Not a lot of people remember when you were born. Not a lot of people are going to remember when you die, but when the dash between those two numbers is where you can have a huge impact. And so get out there, challenge yourself. Don't be afraid to explore and do things outside of the box. And so that led me to a lot of work in the merger and acquisition world, supporting different mergers and acquisitions over time in different capacities, either from a due diligence capacity or an integration capacity, process improvement capacity. And ultimately, it led me to really having interest in expanding my network into what I would call entrepreneurship at the highest level, in terms of actually starting and leading a business, which is kind of where my journey is now, as I've looked to invest in different outfits that required more than just a dollar and writing a check. It required me actually leading, which is what led to the formation of Botanic. So I'll pause there, Sean, but that's a little bit about Dallas to Botanic, which is what you have on the screen there. And there's a mouthful, I'm sure, and I've been known to ramble, man. So feel free to cut me off, but that at a high level, that's kind of a little bit about how we go from hometown to that email address right there. So,
man, nah, that hits on it. That hits on it. What would you say along those lines? Was there a time where you became, or I guess the direct question is, where'd your entrepreneurial spirit come from? Did it come from you working inside of the system? Like, did you at any point feel like you were an entrepreneur, like kind of creating, and it sounded like you were, as far as like becoming a leader? Is that something you did on the job, or realized that you need to leave the job to do?
yeah, that's a great question. I think it's a two-part answer. The first part is working in corporate America, at large corporations with, say, more than 10,000 employees versus small corporations with, say, less than 1,500 employees. I've seen the gamut of growing up and seeing different leadership styles, seeing different decisions that were made that led to successful ventures and led to unsuccessful ventures, led to the decrease in the value in a company versus the increase in the value in a company. And early on, I would say that if you couple that experience of a large corporation, I was maybe 6 months out of college, and I worked for that oil and gas company. It was a very large company. And within 6 months of working there, I saw a gentleman be, he was walked out of the door and terminated a year before full retirement. 6 months out of college, it changed my perspective on corporate America. I always put corporate America and compartmentalize it into a box of it's something that drives our country. And there are a lot of great companies out there, but at the end of the day, in a lot of respects, you're just a number. And a lot of the companies that have been formed over the last 10 years, 10, 15 years, have been formed from startups, and they've solved for trying to figure out how not to have that experience for their employees. And I'll speak more about that later on as we continue down my journey. But it's the two-part answer is seeing it from a corporate America standpoint, and coupling that with when I obtained my CPA license in college at Alabama State, I was part of a program called VITA, which is Voluntary Income Tax Association, where as an accounting student, I volunteered at my college to help people in the community get their taxes done for free at the university, Alabama State University. So we had all walks of life come through the VITA program. And it was at that point I actually drew some interest in actually helping people do their tax returns. So when I retained my CPA license in 2002, I immediately, in that next tax season, started helping people do their taxes. It was friends and family. Friends and family grew to hundreds of clients. And in some of those clients, they were small businesses. In some cases, they were 1-2-man shops. And the inspiration, to answer your question, Sean, the inspiration for entrepreneurship came by way of seeing corporate America, do's and don'ts, experiences there, and knowing that over time, I'm going to need to have multiple streams of income. So why don't I start a tax preparation practice, and I could build relationships and help small business owners actually not only be prepared for their taxes and their tax preparation and their tax planning, but I could also help them make decisions around operations that impacted those tax returns. So one of the motivating factors I always had early on as a tax preparer is helping people get in a position to hire people. As a business starter, as an entrepreneur that's starting a business, there's a lot of questions. You have more questions than you have answers. And one of the things I took a real appreciation for and looked forward to doing was giving free advice to the people that I helped do their tax return. Free advice on how to prepare for marketing, how to prepare for expenses that help them figure out how to deliver their products and services better. You know, how to be prepared for competition, how to be prepared for all of the questions that you need to answer to start a business and maintain a business. And so when I was given this free advice that had direct relation to being a tax preparer and helping them tax plan, and being motivated by helping them be in a position to hire people, that's when I started liking the advice that I was giving and thought, man, it would be nice to put this advice to practice, you know, and start doing this myself and doing my own thing. And so I delved and dabbed over the years, but ultimately it led to not only investing in companies monetarily and through thought leadership, but it led to kind of where I'm at now. So the motivation came from helping people. That's the underlying message here, is have a selfless heart to help people. And I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to give free advice. I didn't have to spend hours on the phone with my tax clients. I did it out of sheer desire to help. And so as a result, I built a lot of relationships, and those relationships have turned into valuable partnerships in future ventures that I was a part of. And so that's the two-step answer: seeing corporate America and having the motivation to help people as part of a tax practice were the two catalysts for driving the motivation to be an entrepreneur.
So amongst that, in that first year, when after you obtain your CPA license, was that the time where you also landed your first contract?
Yeah. So what's interesting is, you know, it's amazing where your journey takes you, you know.
Yeah.
And if I told you all the things that I've kind of dribbed and drabbed in from a business perspective, it'll make you chuckle. Um, but I will say this: my first contract as an entrepreneur actually came by way of a funny story of I had this great idea that I was going to start a T-shirt business. So this is not anything I'm doing now, but it's a funny part of the journey, meaning that as an entrepreneur, you're going to say to yourself, you know, you're going to have a bunch of ideas, you're going to have a bunch of thoughts, you're going to have a bunch of people in your corner, and you're going to do some things that you will never do again. And this is one of those things where I had a contract to make T-shirts for, in this case, it was a youth organization. And I don't know, man, I was probably in my, call it mid to late 20s. And you know, 2-3 years into being a CPA and from a tax prep standpoint. And so I was so excited, right? I just, oh man, this is my first gig, you know, it's worth a couple $1,000s, you know, I don't make that much in a month. I'm still, you know, it was my entry salary at my job, and my tax prep business was mainly just getting off the ground and not, you know, generating seasonal income that you could go play with and, you know, go on vacation or something like that. But and so I was excited. I didn't know where to start in terms of drafting a contract and things like that. And I called on some people and, you know, started my LLC and did all this other stuff, right? And there was a lot of learnings there from the standpoint of, if you're in the service part of a startup, if it's a service business, you know, I can't stress enough that you can't overpromise and underdeliver. You have to be realistic in what you say, what you do, and what you offer. In this case, it was a service of creating T-shirts, right?
Yeah.
But you always want to be professional. Customer service is always the number one thing to think about. And that first contract, I still actually have the contract somewhere in my files, which is fun to pull out every once in a while. A paid contract, right? But if you fast forward to now, where Botanic is in place to really help people that need, people in organizations and companies and school districts is another initiative we have. We're in the PPE space. And so to give a more current, relevant answer to that question, Botanic was put in place and invested in to be a supplier of personal protective equipment as a result of the COVID outbreak. And some of our earlier contracts came by way of relationships, which is another underlying message here, is that you can't have enough relationships. And that's usually how you get started with your first contract, is someone knows you. I've got this famous saying, I know Sean has heard it before, and I speak it a lot during our dream seminars as part of the nonprofit. You've heard the old adage of, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that's a very true statement. But in a lot of cases, and I can speak to this from a Botanic's perspective directly, I would flip that saying around and say, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. So you know the saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I would expand on that thought and say, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. Because you can know somebody, that doesn't mean they're going to help you.
Mm-hmm.
You can call out to them, they could be busy, they could ignore you, they may not have the time, or they may just simply not have an interest. So you can know a lot of people. But when someone comes looking for you because they know you got it, that's the difference. And expanding your network and your reach and your influence gives you the opportunity to have people come look for you. And so in this case, with Votanic being a PPE supplier, both the medical industry, the frontline workers, other medical distributors and school districts, colleges, universities, corporations, we've gotten our reach out there to where we now have people coming looking for us. And that's a great feeling. And to win your first contract, in this case, came by way of a relationship that, didn't know where it would come from, but it came by way of a direct relationship with one of our business partners. And from there, we've since have processed close to 150 contracts in the last 2 months and growing every day. And so that's a long-winded answer, Sean, but at the end of the day, both of those stories around the first contract were sparked by doing selfless acts and having relationships.
And did you have your team already set up in place, or was it just yourself?
Yeah, another great question. So when you go from, in this case, accountant to entrepreneur, which I think is the subject line of our visit here, my team was assembled very quickly, again, because of relationships. I had a co-founder, and he and I have had different investments in different ventures for the last 5 years. But when we decided to form this company and invest in it, we quickly realized that we couldn't delegate the leadership. And so we had to step in and do it ourselves. It was a 2-man group for about a week. And then we expanded to a 4-man group, and now we're at 10 people, 6 employees, and 4 independent contractors. And we're bringing on sales reps on an independent contractor basis on a daily basis now. So our team is growing. And again, a lot of that has to do with relationships and trust. When you bring on a new partner as an investing partner, putting in their own money and time, that comes with trust. Trusting me, trusting the other co-founder, and trusting that we are trying to do the right thing and trying to help people, and they want to be a part of that. And so our team was formed early and has grown in a short amount of time. And we've been able to make significant strides and had a lot of wins based off of knowing and trusting. And ultimately, another message there is when you're becoming an entrepreneur, or if you're already an entrepreneur, in either case, it doesn't matter. In either case, you want to surround yourself with people that you trust, that can give you constructive criticism, that you are willing to accept, that can counsel you and give you advice. You can't get enough of that. And so it's a tight circle. I'm not saying any and everybody, but you always want to have someone that you could lean on for advice, for a piece of reality check, for information, for contacts, for leads. So always be thinking about, who can I seek out for counsel? Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't think you can do it by yourself. As an entrepreneur, you always want to be working on the business, not in the business. The more and more you work in the business, the more and more you run yourself ragged by trying to do everything, and you can't do it. It's impossible. So you have to build a good team, and you have to have people you trust that can give you counsel now and forever to be able to move and put yourself in the best position to be successful. And that's a very important piece. So when I mentioned the guys that I went to college with and I co-founded Turning Dreams into Realities, they are an intricate part of that inner circle that I depend on and rely on for counsel, both business and personal. And you want someone in your circle that could be both, if possible, because the only way to have a solid foundation on making decisions as a business owner, you really want those other personal pieces in place as well, because stress and worry and things that impact your mindset and your thought process could be things that have nothing to do with your business. But if you have people that you trust in your circle that can give you advice, it could help you create a balance such that you have a clear mind and heart when you're making business decisions. So that is a message that I can't stress enough. When you talk about a team, and Sean, I know your question was related to the team aspect, and part of my team directly relates to those things. So, is that helpful?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Was there any or what technology do you guys use, like as far as like keeping the books, or is there any type of special technology or that you guys are using to keep the business together?
Absolutely. So it's funny you asked that, because we are in the midst of solidifying one more piece of that supply chain, if you will, which is, we are in the PPE sourcing business. So we have inventory as part of our supply chain. And we have a software we're looking at subscribing to that will help complete the circle, so to speak, which is called ShipEdge. But ultimately, we have Salesforce as part of our sales and lead and sales management. We will have ShipEdge to sit between Salesforce. So let me take a step back. We have a front end e-commerce piece, which is important to make sure you build a great front end experience from a website perspective. And depending on if there's a commerce aspect, are people buying things on that site? Obviously, you want to have that solid as well. But that piece feeds our Salesforce, which will feed ShipEdge, which will interact with our sourcing partners. It'll interact with our customers. It'll interact with our shipping partners and create that mini ecosystem of sourcing and delivering products that will be linked into the larger ecosystem of website, Salesforce, ShipEdge, QuickBooks. And so when you look at our chain and the associated marketing aspects of those things, leveraging SEO and things like that as part of that chain, that's the circle that we've built. And we found that the cloud-based solutions obviously provide the greatest flexibility. So when we look at a QuickBooks, it's not a site-based, it's a cloud-based solution there with online version. ShipEdge will be all cloud-based. Salesforce is obviously cloud-based, and our marketing and website is obviously cloud-based. And so you just have to go there if it makes the most sense, depending on what you're doing. If you're manufacturing widgets, different story, right? Yeah. You can live in the cloud and leverage those tools and let them work for you. That's our ultimate goal, is to build and get to that place where we're happy in that regard. So
nice. What was your biggest challenge in starting a business and going along this journey?
Yeah, I would say our biggest challenge was really making sure that the infrastructure was in place. I mean, you can have great sales reps. You can have a great product or service. Usually leveraging social media is easier for people that are 35 or younger. So all of those connectivity points, you can usually solve for and figure out if you're savvy enough to put those pieces in place. The hardest part is the infrastructure to scale. And so I would challenge any business owner to say that they've completely solved for that, because there's always room for improvement. Even if you're very successful, there's always room for improvement to look at leadership, to look at infrastructure, people, processes, and systems. It's really what it boils down to. And there's usually always room for improvement in those areas. So I'll say that the hardest part was not getting going. It's not setting up your LLC. It's not getting registered with the state. It's not getting your EIN number. It's not setting up your website. It's not setting up your social media pages and getting all that interconnectivity going. You know, you can usually do that stuff in a week or less if you know what you're doing or have the right resources to help you. It's really being prepared for customers, customer success, customer experience, and scale. How do you grow? Because a lot of times, if you're successful as an entrepreneur, there's two big things you always need to be thinking about. Always is, how do I have the best customer experience? What areas can I improve on there? And what's my exit strategy? Even as an entrepreneur, you always want to be thinking about your exit strategy. And an exit strategy doesn't mean you have to leave the business altogether. A lot of times your exit strategy could be as simple as, I want to sell the business to someone else and remain a part of the business some kind of way, as a board member, as an advisory board member, as a minority owner, as a stockholder, or even on a contract basis. Or it could simply be, hey, I want to sell this business or this part of my business. I want to sell this product, and I want to use the proceeds from the sale of that product to go into this other aspect of a complementary business or a new business. But you always want to be thinking about, what's the end game here? And that will change over time. And so when you think about the best customer experience possible, team and infrastructure in place to make sure you can scale and grow and handle success. How do you handle success, right? That's a great question. How do you handle success? You probably can handle adversity better than you can handle success, because you've been through a lot of stuff. Your personal journey as an adolescent, your personal journey through business or post high school, your personal journey after high school. You've dealt with a lot of challenges. You overcome a lot of things. You still have a lot to overcome, but your adversity and your response to adversity, you're probably more apt to be prepared to do that, to always go back to something that was comfortable and easy. But guess what? If you're an entrepreneur and you're successful, what do you have to go back to? You made it, right? You know, you didn't really make it. You've had some success, but how do you handle that, right? What do you reference to? That's where the inner circle will have a counsel and people on your team to leverage and talk to. That's where one of those big pieces come into play there. So how do you handle success? You know, how do you scale? What's your exit strategy? So the biggest challenge for us was putting the infrastructure in place, which we're still working on, to be able to scale and having a clear line of sight to the exit strategy. The two biggest challenges that we've experienced on the more recent term of a brand new startup in botanics. So.
That's real. That's real. Can definitely attest to that. Before we do go into our closing remarks, just want to let everyone anyone on the call or watching there on Facebook be able to ask a question to Mark, type it into the chat, or type it into the Zoom chat, or comment under the video if you're watching there. Well, and then we will go to the closing remarks and then finish off with the final question. So,
Absolutely. And Sean, man, I just want to extend an invitation. I know sometimes people may be bashful or don't want to waste time with certain questions. To me, no question is a dumb question. I'm more than happy to take questions now or even when we're done. You know, if that means an email or a phone call would be better. I'm an old school cat. I'm not on social media a lot. I prefer in-person or phone calls because we can have a better dialogue. And so if we have questions now, I'm more than happy to entertain, obviously, but I also want to extend the invitation even when we're done, Sean, now and forever for that matter. Anyone connected to Sean is connected to me, you know, because Sean's part of my family. So just wanted to stress and make that known.
definitely. We do have a question from Cherry Vanessa Jeter Freeman, also known as Mom to me. She asks, what inspired you to attend Alabama State as opposed to maybe Tuskegee? She is
I like it. I
she's
like
a
it.
Tuskegee alum, you know, so.
Yeah, no doubt. So my parents both attended Prairie View A&M University near Houston. For those in the SWAC know it well. And I actually was going to attend Prairie View A&M University because I was highly influenced by my parents. But as the late, great Ramon Harper that I mentioned earlier on the call, the co-founder of Turning Dreams to Realities, his aunt she was a youth minister at the church we both attended, Mount Olive Baptist Church in Arlington, Texas. And she had done a lot of research, and Ramon had gotten a full ride to Alabama State. And I thought, at the last minute, man, you know what? Let me take a look at it. I also was interested in playing basketball. I received a scholarship invitation from Johnson C. Smith in North Carolina to play basketball. And I turned that down because I had some injuries and I just didn't want to deal with it, and eventually got an offer to walk on to Alabama State University as a result of beating up on the coaches team and the intramural team that we played on. And so when I decided to attend Alabama State, it was really a last minute decision. I noticed that the business school had gotten recent accreditation. They were up and coming. The class size was small. And I trusted, in this case, I trusted Ramon after kind of talking to him. And I just said, you know what, let's just do it. And so I obviously was homesick being from Dallas. I was homesick my first semester, but I stuck it out, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made. I mean, I have lifelong friends that are my family. I received a great education and ultimately created a foundation for where I'm at today. And so I didn't look at Tuskegee primarily because I knew that Alabama State was also affordable. It was a big thing for me at the time as well. Being able to go to school for, I don't even know what it was, $6,000 a semester was very enticing at the time. And so I didn't have a lot of money. My mom and father didn't save for college. So I had to do a lot of stuff on my own. So it was a long story, but it ended up being a great story. And here I am. So it was a mixed bag of evaluation, but I enjoyed the journey there. So
Man, nice. In closing, just 3 takeaways, maybe a resource, a website, or a workshop that others may be able to benefit one from, or maybe one that you've attended yourself.
absolutely. So I would say that for all the young men that are out there, pre-college, currently in college, or recently graduated from college, and Sean could be a great resource. Turning Dreams into Realities is a nonprofit that I mentioned. We are looking for more partners and people to be part of our organization. So that's a great resource for those that are in that genre in their journey. I would say that, you know, one of the things as an entrepreneur that I would encourage you to do is become a member of your local incubator. So what you have now in most major metropolitan cities is organizations that are tied to places like WeWork and Spaces, and there's an organization in Dallas called Dallas Entrepreneurial Center. And so when you look at places that have, you know, been able to stand up venues for you to go as an aspiring entrepreneur or current entrepreneur to network with other aspiring entrepreneurs or current entrepreneurs, find those entrepreneurial incubators that you can go and network with, join the associations that are part of your industry that you're looking to get into or currently in. And then ultimately, I would say look to find venues where you could serve, and if they're tied to your industry, even better. Where can you volunteer? Where can you have a selfless act that not only leads to doing something beneficial and making a difference, but also allows you to expand your network, and even better if it's expanding your network in an industry that you have an interest in being an entrepreneur in or contributing in some way. You know, and don't be afraid to do this on your own. You know, be a self-starter and find those venues. So that's kind of my initial thoughts around that question, Sean. There's a lot more there if you are in my industry, but yeah, get out there, learn more, and just figure out where you can stumble into something that you think is beneficial for you.
Nice. Nice. And then maybe just ending with a little bit. I don't think we got to touch a super lot on it. Just maybe what's next for you, what's next for Voltanic, and anything that you would like to, you know, plug at this time.
Yeah, absolutely. So Botanic is really on a mission to try to get critical PPE in the hands of organizations and institutions and agencies that need it. And we have a big back to school campaign to help the K-12 market, public school, private school, charter school, college, university. And if you go to our website, which is votanic.com, there's a link at the top for our back to school program. And ultimately, my message here is, if you could be of help to us, we'd love to be of help to you or who else needs these critical items. And we have masks, disposable masks, we have washable masks, we have gloves and gowns and thermometers and you know, kits. And so at the end of the day, there's a lot of people that are compromising themselves. As you guys have seen, as the country has tried to reopen, we've had a surge in cases for COVID. Hospitalization is down, but cases are up. And so we'll see more of that. And I feel like there'll be a balance at some point where we have more cases like we have flu cases. But the country's got to get back to work. We just can't suffer the way we've suffered over the last couple of months and have that sustainable. You want to talk about a Great Depression. If we were to have that again, it could be devastating, which we've already seen unemployment rates at the highest the country's ever seen. So I say all that to say this: Botanic is here to help. We are in the space of PPE, and we'd love to partner with any schools, school districts, superintendents, principals. We'd love to partner with anybody that you have a direct connection with and get them vital PPE if they decide to reopen. We know a lot of schools are making that decision on whether or not they want to reopen or not. And if they decide to reopen, we just want to be here to help on day 1 or day 30. Doesn't matter to us. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of my shameless, selfless plug. But yeah, we're in that business, and we're here to help. So look us up. Contact me directly with any other questions about our topics today. our mentorship program at TDI, which is, that website is TDI2, the number 2R.com. So TDI, the number 2.com or .org, and you can find our Turning Dreams to Reality organization as well. So
.org or .org.
.org, yeah. TDI2R.org.
Yeah. We do have another question.
Yeah.
This one comes from Jordan Lachey. She asks, what advice, words of encouragement would you give to an entrepreneur seeking to leave corporate America for good?
Yeah, great question. And by the way, Sean, I don't have a hard stop, so I can keep going if you can.
Cool.
But my advice would be simply this. Do your research while you're still working. Build your network of advisors and counselors and potential partners and team members, supporters, encouragers. Build that network and circle while you're still working. Start the business on a soft level while you're still working. Because what you want to do is continue to have ample support from a financial perspective. Now, if you have the means, do so, go ahead and quit. But if you want to depend and leverage that income, continue to do those things. Research, build your network and team and supporters and counselors. Start the business on a soft basis. Get to understand, work out the kinks, and then do all of that while you're still working. And then if you can afford to do that, then go ahead and develop a plan to wean off of your current job. Now, we'll say this: if you plan to take out any retirement money associated with starting the business, which is okay to do, I would encourage you to think about the timing of that. And it may be helpful to put this decision off of leaving your company and accessing that retirement money in the next year. So if you have the flexibility to do that soft launch and do all these things that I'm mentioning as recommendations while you're working, it may be in your best advantage to go all the way up to the end of the year, quit sometime in December, and actually access that retirement money in the following year, to where your penalties and interest associated with taking, not interest, but your penalties associated with taking that money out of your retirement account hits in the year that you're going to do most of your business startup work at the startup basis. That way, the impact of your W-2 working income is not pushing you into another tax bracket for the impact of taking out that retirement money. That makes sense. So if you have the flexibility, think about that January 1st cutover in accessing any retirement money. But ultimately, have fun with it. That's the other thing. You want to make sure you're doing something you enjoy doing. You want to make sure that you're thinking about it the right way. So being prepared from a research perspective and an advisory perspective. And ultimately, yeah, I mean, figure out the right time to pull the trigger. Don't be too eager to jump out there without a plan. So.
Definitely. Man, it's just a pleasure, having you on, Mark, for sure. It's definitely, of course, to your point, won't be the last. Can't thank TDI enough, and even just setting up this call. Honestly, the only thing I could think about was, the last time I saw you in this type of capacity was with Ramon, and having him on with the webinars that he was doing. So I feel good in a way that I'm carrying on that legacy. But man, it does hurt a bit much, that Mon isn't here with us. But definitely know that he is watching us, and his spirit is with us each and every day that we continue to carry on. Just want to thank you, again for everything that you do for myself, for the other mentees in the group, and really having that just open door, to just, text you guys, call, you literally are a call away, text away. And that mentorship is huge as we're trying to navigate these new spaces, in our life. So
No
thank you.
doubt.
Sure.
No doubt. Man, appreciate you having me on, Sean. I'm very thankful. And if we want to do a part two with just me or part two with other guys in the group, man, I'm always down to support you guys. And I appreciate you, man, inviting me on. So this was, I hope I helped somebody with something there. And like I say, feel free to email or call if you have any questions after the fact.
Definitely. Definitely. So, let me see. So next week, well, first and foremost, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're currently at 32 subscribers, I believe, trying to. So we are what? My math is bad. 68 away, 68 subscribers away from 100, to where we can change our URL from my personal account to Free Hype's professional account, so looking to crack 100 there. All of this event, along with all the events that we've been doing, are all listed on our YouTube account, so definitely feel free to go on and subscribe. Next week, next Tuesday, we will be sitting down with Mr. Fred Cox, Executive Director of Racial Injustice Now. And we'll be speaking on how we move forward during these times. So if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel,